Hello everyone on the internet and thanks for tuning in. I'm RyuKiva of RyuKiva Toku.
And welcome to another episode of Toku Bros. I'm Dragon Zeron of the Tokusatsu Media Center.
Lupinranger!
Shabba-dooby-doo-ba.
Was that LVP? I don't remember that.
Uh, no, from the villain. She says that before she grows to monsters.
Raw. So
You don't
today
even
we are
remember?
talking about Keisatsu Sentai Lupinranger versus.
Keisatsu Sentai Patranger.
There we go. Alright, so how are we feeling about LVP right now?
I did not like it. It was boring as hell.
Boring? No,
Boring.
see, like, I can understand if people didn't like it. It was very mellow, but I wouldn't call
It
it
was
boring.
so slow. That's the
It,
thing.
I'll
It
give you
dragged.
that. No, but this is it, because it was so multi-layered. I mean, for me, so like, as I just said, for me, it was such a mellow series in terms of content, despite the innovations within, which I did love seeing, but I felt they weren't necessary. Like it was even a bit excessive in some cases,
Like,
which we're
okay.
gonna get into. But it
Yeah,
still surprises me somewhat that it's in my top 10 Sentai. Admittedly, I mean, on
mhm.
its own, I would still rate it as a decent series anyway. So you were saying?
So basically, I felt like this series could have been great had they split it off into two separate like miniature shows, or like
That
each
was
week we
kind
get
of a
to see a.
rumor at one point. It
I
was,
think that would have been a way better way to have spaced out the story. We get to see what the Pat Rangers were doing, and then the next week we'll be watching Lupin Rangers, and they just focus way too. Yeah, we'll just
no,
get
no,
to
it's
that
cool.
point.
Carry on.
Well, they just focus way too much on Lupin Rangers and not just Pata Rangers,
Right. See,
And
I am definitely going to get into what you just said because I do
like
agree with
it's
you.
just
But one thing I do, I mean, it's like getting into the next category, like build up to episode one and what we remember before it. Ironically, there were so many wild rumors. I mean, the
hmm
fact that it was two teams anyway, the rumors were going to be wild and they were going to seem really out there. So the one you just said, I actually do remember hearing that rumor, but I didn't make any notes on that because for me, my long-time nemesis in the tokusatsu world, Duke 122. This, for me personally, has to be the first time Duke 122's rumours actually were spot on, right? So I hold my hands up because normally he's full of BS,
hmm
but he was actually full on. He was actually spot on. So I do remember
hmm
hearing about two warring team factions as a Sentai first, and that there would be a character that would go between the two teams, which
hmm
could, in retrospect, could have been referring to either Good Striker or Noel, our Lupin X
hmm
Patron X. I only
Noel.
remember seeing a poster reveal as opposed to a trailer, admittedly, and
hmm
it did look pretty slick. So if anyone knows the poster I'm talking about, it's a slick looking poster. But I do
hmm
remember taking a dislike to the look of Patranger really early on, in my honest opinion.
It
But
felt like it was a local hero, like it not an actual Sentai series. You know what I mean?
you felt it was like a local hero, also a local hero
Yeah,
series.
Because here's why: those white and red, like in the green, like the white didn't look really that great on that suit. I think if they were to have used a different material or something, like a little bit of armor or something, I think that would have been pretty interesting.
No, see, I'm going to disagree. I mean, the thing is, like, when it came to the white on Lupinranger, that was fine. I think the fact that they went with, like, a pastel green and a pastel pink and a sort of their red. I mean, because I will say, when they switched the colours around, I think it was in the movie, they switched the colours around.
hmm
The red, blue, yellow did look really funky. It looked really popping on the Lupin, on the Patranger's suit.
hmm
And then, like, this, I'm pretty sure that was in the movie, but I'm thinking I might be mixing it up with fan art
Or it
because
might be the
I remember seeing like the green and pink in fan art specifically, and
mhm.
like they used a darker green, they used a darker pink, and it popped. So the fact is, for me, Nigo and Sango had like this pastille going on, which I think threw it off. That's just my opinion, though.
Mhm. And the thing is, I felt also that like the with the little shoulder pads, I felt like there could have been more to the suit. It was a very simplistic
I mean,
suit.
the shoulder pads on Patranger, yeah, I kind of get what you're saying, but I think
Yeah,
the
it's
fact
just I
that you
don't
had
know.
like, because you had like the black visor, but then the black visor kind of went onto the forehead, which really
Mhm.
threw me. Yeah, that was just one of the many things that threw me off the
Yeah,
Patranger
well, it's
suit.
supposed to be based off a police hat, with the curvature and stuff.
But that's
So,
it. I mean, I get it. I mean, I got it, but it just threw me off. Like it just looked ick
mhm.
to me.
Yeah,
So
I don't.
yeah,
Mhm.
go on.
No. Like I just felt like they could have done a little bit better job of like designing the Pat Ranger suit to maybe make it look like a bit better. Maybe use a different color instead of like green. And like I think black would have been a great color to use with the black and white. You know what I mean?
So let's move on to talk about the first few episodes. So I do feel it was a little. So this is it. So like, I will disagree with what you said earlier. That at least in the first half of LVP, it was just like what they did try to cover both teams equally. I'll say, but because of this, and then you've got this whole retired general this retiring commander in the villain base. It was just
Mhm.
like the storytelling was just a little bit all over the place to begin with, in my opinion. But like
Mhm.
many people, I felt more akin to the Lupinrangers simply because their story was much more deep. There was a better
and
origin
more
story. There was like
more explained.
better explained, and like it was all deep and personal, and like you got a better origin story. And then I think Lupin Ranger kind of stole it with their opening sequences of episode 1, to be fair. I
Mhm.
mean, I will give props to Dogranio, who was actually a sort of unique main villain in the fact that he was retiring,
Mhm.
story wise, but in those early episodes, I just felt they were being too mysterious about him, and that kind
Mhm.
of went on to an anticlimax. So again, like it's kind of what you're saying. They really developed the Lupin Rangers, and you really get an insight into them early on, which is always key. I mean, like with the Patrangers, you don't really get their developed story and origin, and the alternative another Nego and that till further on. So that served as a
Mhm.
massive disadvantage. And again, with the Granio, with the villains, it was all mystery. So your thoughts?
I felt like the villain. I kind of wish we had a little bit more explanation, and like a little bit explanation on how he got the Lupin like collection. Because he basically had it all, and yet he didn't even use it throughout the whole series. And I wish the Lupin collective could have been used more, and not just with the monsters. I would have liked to see the Pat Rangers and Lupin Rangers have used those collections to potentially use it to like fight against the Ganglar, and not just like use it for like Jackpot Striker or whatever, or the Zord.
So moving on to actually talking about the cast. So I'll try and make this a back and forth just to keep the flow. So starting with the three Lupin Rangers, they did have they did have what these somewhat subtle personalities, but again, it's
Mm-hmm.
all about their origin stories. Especially Red, like I felt really akin with his older brother storyline. With
Mm-hmm.
Blue, he kind of came off a bit cold, which I think was deliberate. But
Yeah, and I think that, like,
then there's this nicey kawaii yellow, which was a bit of a stretch for me to find her convincing. And then I am not too sure about the butler, but he had his comedy moments. So the Lupin Ranger cast.
mm-hmm. I felt like the story of each of them, and especially with the Frost guy, I don't even know, it's played by Kikaider. But
Who?
like basically Kikaider. You don't know Kikaider?
I don't know what you like. Which member?
Frost
Who?
guy. The
Lacrosse?
Frost guy. They're from
Oh,
the
you talking about
monsters.
Zamigo?
Yeah, the Migo.
Oh, we'll talk
I
about the
know,
villains
but
in a bit.
he's the
But
one who
yeah.
basically kicked all these events
Oh, of
off.
course. Yeah, yeah, yeah. All right,
Like,
I'll get
and
you on
he's
that
not
one.
really associated with the gang lars. That's the thing. And
Yeah.
I do wish we had seen more of him. Like I
Okay.
think, like we barely got to see any storylines of him and how he became like a gangler. I think that would have been a great story to see them like explain, and why he had a human form unlike everybody else, unless it
Yeah,
was
but
his
they do
flesh.
that in Sentai though. It's like you'll have all these like boogly monsters, and then there's like a human villain in there somewhere. I mean,
Hmm.
Tokuja's a prime example of that.
Yeah, but at least he explained it and he got a monster form at the
Right. So
end,
your thoughts on the Lupin Ranger cast still?
They were pretty solid. I did enjoy the acting of all of them, especially Red. He kind of had like the,
Arigato. Yeah. Go.
yeah, I love that. And I also enjoyed the way they interact with each other, and the Patrangers, It's like they knew the police didn't like them, but they made them like the person. Like that,
Dude,
and I thought that was a
you're
pretty good.
basically talking on the level of every black person in America. You know that, right?
Well,
Yeah. Right.
I'm not black though,
It's fine.
but
Obviously. Yeah. Carry
But
on.
like, but seriously though, the way like it was more like the Power Rangers hated the Lupin Ranger, but outside of their form, they actually liked the actual like Lupin Ranger host, and like they got along great with each other. Just
Well, I'm trying to remember the name
different.
of the cafe. I'm not sure if it was Cafe Olay, which might have been a Carmen, right? I mean, this is it. Like, we'll talk
No, I
about
think it is
location
a
right at the
Cafe
end.
LA.
Huh?
I think it was a Cafe Ola or something
Right,
like
that's cool.
or Ula.
So any quick thoughts on the Lupin Ranger before we talk about the Patch Ranger cast?
Not really, no, because he
Alright,
basically.
cool. So with the Patrangers, like I seem to like the concept of Patron Ichigo, Keichiro, and
Hmm.
his personality, but something didn't quite gel. I mean, it felt like a little amiss. I'm not too sure if that was deliberate. With Green, I
I felt like he
think
was a meathead. Like,
Meathead. No,
I think.
I'll get into that discussion in a bit. But with Green, I think a lot of what I didn't like about his character was deliberate. I mean, maybe it kind of touched on myself in his character. More about me and him probably have a lot more in common than I'd care to admit. But Sango, it was definitely all about her. She had the sass, she had the class, she had the really nice ass,
Mhm.
and she was a strong female character.
Mhm.
But when it comes to Commander Hilltop, though, I mean, massive props to like again, like mentioning black people for the second time already. Like, the fact is, I know a little bit, like I saw a little bit of background of the actor who
Yeah,
was
he's like
like,
considered
trying
the.
to break into the Japanese scene, and
Mhm.
he gets like, he gets the commander role for this
Mhm.
series. So
And
like,
he's like considered
I'm
the
hella jealous of him, but massive props to him and the fact that he can talk the language so fluently. That's amazing. Massive props to him. With the
Yeah.
robot thing, can't remember its name. A little bit
Don't know.
irritating. Little bit irritating. So go
Didn't
on.
have no.
Your thoughts
But
on
okay,
the
let me go
Patranger
back to
cast?
Hilltop. But like basically, he's considered like the Steve in Japan. From Blue's Clues. I don't know if y'all have Blue's Clues over
We
there in the
have it, but
UK.
I don't know it.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
not y'all fault. But like basically, in Japan, he's basically like credited to that type of guy, and that's why every kid knows him and stuff because he's always doing like these little mini shows in the morning, and like he's what Japanese kids see. And I thought he was a good character, but I do wish we had a little bit more exclamation for him. I felt like they could have maybe explained he was from the American branch after the first commander died or something, from the first
Well, I
Lupin
mean, you
attack.
say that because I will go on to talk about Noel and Good Striker, but like obviously there's this whole GSPO thing,
Hmm.
and this whole GSPO thing, and the fact that there's branches around the world, let alone in France, which kind of didn't make sense to me personally. But they
Well,
are supposed to
okay,
be global police, like
yeah. Let me explain. So basically, Lupin is French, and Lupin got like the stories of
that.
Lupin were
Actually,
made by a
that does
French
make a bit
actor.
more sense. Actually, yeah,
Yeah.
sure. All
So
right.
that explains that's where all the collection came from and stuff. But they somehow ended up putting it in Japan. Like kind of like Lupin the Third, which is an anime series. I don't know if you've seen it. I mean,
I've seen. I mean, this is like I saw. Like, I mean, a lot of people have been like mixing up, like the fact that there was an anime called Lupin. So yeah, I got that reference.
hmm
Right,
and
but
like.
mm, go on.
And also regarding the Red Ranger and the Yellow, I felt Red was kind of a meathead. He was always raging and stuff, for no fucking reason, and I hated that. I did not like His
I
character
mean,
was
I
just
guess it's
he
like
had
you
no
say
substance.
meathead, but I do get your rage point. So I think we say stress head. Like he was hot headed, definitely.
Yeah, like, but I wouldn't say hot headed. You just get angry over the littlest things, you know.
I think
Like
that was
even if
deliberate.
I know, but even then, it's just like explain that. Like, why is he like that? You know,
They
did
did
he?
though. They did because I'm not sure if it was related to the original Nego. No, because they did. I mean, this it was. They were quite repetitive in Kechiro's origin story,
Mm-hmm.
and like you did see all these flashbacks of him and Sango at the academy. I mean, no Steve Gutenberg anywhere, but they did show us the police academy, right? So yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I think that was kind of deliberate, to be fair.
Mm-hmm.
But
And
let
like
me, yeah, go on.
I was gonna also talk about the Green Ranger. He's like kind of the noob to the team, and he
Yeah.
kind of builds into it. And but he's like a lovesick guy, kind of, you know. But
Oh,
he's like
that
the kind of
thing with Lupin Yellow, that was mad.
yeah, yeah. Like
I
I
felt for
was
him, though.
yeah, I thought yeah, definitely.
This is
I
why
could
I relate to Patra's Nigo too much. That's
yeah.
kind of
He's like
embarrassing,
yeah,
really.
he's falling in love with her without
Oh,
realizing.
jeez,
Yeah,
yeah, I remember that. That's a bit embarrassing
and
for me
it's not even
personally.
simping, you know. He's just like I really like you,
Oh
you know.
no, man, I feel bad for him.
Yeah, I kind of wish we got some like closure, you know, where they actually did go like on a few dates near the end, you know, and you know, like after they got to know each other, maybe see him propose like 2 months, 2 years later. You know what I mean? Like, cause
I mean, we
yeah.
get that. We did get that in the crossover movie, which we'll be talking about towards the end. But let
Mhm.
me just quickly pay some massive props to the character that I did absolutely love in this. Noel, Patron X, Lupin X. He pretty much stole the show for me with his cool mana, his parkour fighting style. He had all these cool gadgets and mecha, and ultimately he did have the right amount of mystery. So it wasn't like
Mhm.
too much, too little, which again is quite rife in this series. I wasn't really feeling the persona of good striker though, and he came off to me as irritating. I normally have a bit of impartiality when it comes to the anthropomorphic, you know, gadgets and whatnot in Sentai, but for me there was a general indifference here. Any quick thoughts on these two?
Um, Good Striker was just he was just there, you know. He didn't really add
I
anything
mean, he
except
mugged
being a
everyone
mecha.
off though. He kept mugging everyone off. That was kind of amusing, but again, a general indifference for me
Well, I
personally.
kind of wish we had like a ticket thing from Tokuder. If he was arrogant like that, you know, and just like roast everybody, I think that would have been he would have been a great character, you know, where he was just like a complete asshole.
Yes, I
Like
do see what you're
I
saying.
would have liked to see that more from him, and you know, he's like because I'm so fucking rich, I'm like the best mother. I saved y'all's life, you know, and we didn't really get to see that. And then
No.
Noel, I thought Noel, but like basically, his backstory is pretty interesting with him being the grandson of Lupin, and as well as being
No,
a
he was like
gangler.
an alien or something, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was a gangler, I think, if I'm not mistaken, and that's
I
why he
don't
was
know. It's
able to.
such a mad. I mean, again, it got really complicated at the end, and we'll talk about the end at the end.
Hmm.
But going straight into talking about the villains, so I'll start with the monsters of the week, which I didn't feel I was too hot on. I mean, they were very limited. The fact that their powers were based on a big safe attached to them, in my opinion.
Hmm.
That I think, like the gadgets inside were Lupin artifacts or something, which
Yeah, and they were
They were cool
basically
Sentai
Sentai
Easter
props.
eggs that were repainted. With Degranio again, I liked his look and how secretly crazy he was. I mean, he was just getting
Hmm.
crazier. I felt the generals were a bit forgettable in my opinion.
Yeah, the
One being a
only thing I
rip-off
remember is the
of the girl from
lips
Zuojo, I
girl.
think.
Yeah, lips girl. I call her because she had a big ass lip on her mouth, you know, or
Right,
like on her head.
fair enough. The only one
But
that
like,
has any relevance, and again, you've already started talking about him, was Zamigo. I mean, he was
hmm
pretty cool, but you know, and he had like the whole ice thing and his own secret layer. But apart from that, there wasn't any heavy relevance.
yeah, he didn't really show up
So
that
your thoughts on the
often.
villains?
I they were pretty forgettable, you know. I think they could have done something with each villain, have them have a backstory on how they became a gangler, you know, and how they got their collection, you know. And let's not forget, like the enemy of Lupin versus Pat, he's still alive, you know. He's still he's
Hmm.
still locked up in like a chamber like 20,000 feet under the sea or
There
some
again,
shit,
you
you
could
know.
say exactly the same thing about Geki Ranger with Long in a Ball.
Yeah, but like he wasn't actually. Well, Long got like forced into submission into that ball. This guy is still locked up, and I do want. I would like to see him get defeated. Defeated, you
Well, we'll
know,
probably get 10 years later at some point, who knows.
potentially
But
if they
let's talk
still
about the
acting.
plot real quick. So, story progression, I mean, this is kind of like where I do kind of agree to an extent. So, like, I did feel that the first half was, they tried to split evenly. They were like, which team are you going to pick? And I think where it became completely obvious that everyone was more invested in Lupin Ranger, we
Yeah,
then saw like they had more power ups. We saw more going on with their mecha, and the Patrangers were pretty much the side story. I
and
mean, we
bare
did like,
bones.
we got things like another Nego, like the specials I'll talk about in a bit. But then it just kind of got crazier and weirder, and like at least we got more of like the Noel story, the Lupin story.
Mhm,
But again, it just felt to me mismatched and random, in my opinion.
mhm. Like I agree. Like I do wish they could have split it up, have it be like 25 stories, and like each like week we'll get to see them see their side of the story,
I
you know.
mean,
And I think that would have been a better.
like one rumor I heard was that it'd be like week on week you'd get the same story from two different perspectives. I remember hearing that
Exactly.
as a rumor, but we didn't
They
even
didn't
get
do
that. It
that.
was literally just a
It
mishmash.
Yeah, it should have been that though. I think that would have probably saved the series from getting stale, you know, if they had just like done like
Well, I
25
mean, I think the
episodes.
thing is again, it just got so Lupin heavy, and then again, it was still mishmash. But
Mhm.
let's talk about all the gadgets and gizmos in this series. So, firstly, those Easter eggs. I forget if they did have a proper name. Maybe Lupin artifacts or something.
Yeah, Lupin collection.
That was the name of the whole collection, sure. But I don't know if they had like, like they must have all had their
They were
individual
based off of
names.
songs and stuff, if I'm not mistaken.
I don't know. But then it's like, but then you had the Lupin changes, which was a bit of a Kyoryuger rip in my opinion.
Mhm.
But they did result in some power up armor for especially the Lupin Rangers that were pretty decent. Like I remember the
Yeah, I
scissors and
actually
the
liked the
shield and stuff.
Yeah, I actually enjoyed when they combined together. I thought
Well,
that was
that was
actually
the Patrangers became like one whole person. I thought that had like a bit of a sort of kind of gag reel to it, like vibe to it. So I
yeah,
thought that was
but
pretty
I kind
cool.
of liked it though. Like it kind
What
of
did
gave me
you
a lot of double
think? What did
vibes.
you think of the mecha in the show? Because I thought that in general, even Lupin X, Patron X's, thingy majig, it was a bit of a mess. But
I
like
thought it was
specifically, Noel's
alright,
mecha had a bit of a cool aesthetic, but still. So go
Like
on,
I
mecha.
thought it was alright to be honest with you. There was nothing really special about it, like you know what I mean. But there were some good CGI scenes where they had them fight in like a CGI environment. You know that wouldn't be possible in a suit.
I don't really remember that. Anything
Well,
else
I
before we move on?
um like I do wish they had like a big jumbled up mess of a gadget like formation at the end. You know, with all the Lupin
No,
boys.
don't start talking about clusterfucks, please. I mean, it's
Hey,
bad enough. It's
clusterfucks are
bad enough
awesome.
in enough. We've had enough Sentai with that.
Well, we haven't really had a clusterfuck in a while, so.
No, I disagree with that. Let me think. Let me think. What was last year? No, last year's Kira Major was a bit of a cluster.
Not really. Well, maybe a bit, but they didn't combine all the Zords together. They're still pretty separate.
Not really, because you had like 3 on 2 on 5 on the Orodin. Anyway, so we'll talk about Kira Major next time. So let's talk about the clothing, the appearance of our heroes. So
Hmm.
I did like with the armor, like I did like the Lupin suits. We've already discussed what we didn't like about the Patranger suits.
Hmm.
But the again, like I will still say it was just about the pastel colors because the patterns of the Patron uniforms were pretty good still. And then you
Hmm.
got the Lupin Rangers civvies, which was like frilly denim jacket for yellow, checkered shirt for blue, and red. Yeah. like yeah, they were standard, I guess, but obviously not the most memorable. Whereas the Patrangers, they had their cool uniforms, which I did like their uniforms,
Mm-hmm.
but then they also had civvies as well. I'll be straight up honest, I don't remember red and greens, but Sango was absolutely kawaii. Too
Mm-hmm.
kawaii for words is all I can say about Sango. So you got
Yeah.
any quick thoughts on this?
I did like whenever the Lupin Rangers were like inside of their suits and stuff. I actually enjoyed the mask and stuff, like a masquerade.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
I
Yeah,
I love that. I
that was
actually
cool. That was
enjoyed
a cool aesthetic because they were trying to stay
masquerade.
they were trying to stay incognito, weren't
Exactly.
they? Yeah, of
Yet it's
course.
still well. I think outside, like everybody knew it
Well,
was
this is it. I
them,
mean,
but
because I said Patrangers had the uniform, but then the Lupin Rangers also kind of had that uniform as well with
yeah,
their
mask and
masks
stuff.
on. Oh, I completely forgot about that. That's mad. Yeah,
Yeah,
but
like
those were cool
I
though.
thought that
Yeah.
was actually a really good like it had like I got a lot of Magic Girl vibe from the comedy show series from back in the 80s and stuff. Shitaru Shimura worked on. I got a lot of vibe from that mask and stuff and a lot
Okay,
of
that's cool.
so yeah, I thought that was actually a pretty decent way to pay tribute to that. And I actually enjoy the mask, and I do wish we got to see more of them in those suits. So.
Sure. So let's move on. Let's talk about the movie. I mean, we've already made references to it, but let's talk about the movies. Let's see how many, because there was a lot of specials for
Hmm.
LVP, to be fair. So we'll try cover like maybe a couple of them. So talking about the move, so the main movie for LVP, it's very. I mean, the only thing I really remember is they switched the main powers. So you had like Lupinrangers become like one person, and then like the Patrangers managed to, like I think it was specifically Ichigo, managed to duplicate himself.
Hmm.
So that was all I literally really remember from it, if I'm genuinely honest. I know I've watched
Yeah,
it.
it's kind of boring though. A lot of the movies were boring, except the
I
another
think there was
Patriot.
like some stuff about Lupin himself though, if I remember correctly, and then you see Noel right at the end, if I'm not mistaken,
Hmm.
which is kind
Yeah,
of
but
cool.
Lupin was always this mysterious figure, and I do wish we kind of got to see more on why he created the collection, and why he like put it out elsewhere, and not put it all together. You know what I mean? I like
and
to
th-
see that.
and then of course, and I think we have technically talked about this before, is the team up with Q Ranger, which was, I mean, it was really cool seeing. No, wait, was it? No, there was the team up with Q Ranger. Was it a Q Ranger?
Yeah, Q Ranger.
They did a team up with Q Ranger, and then if I'm not mistaken, they did a team up with Rue Soldier as well.
I did. I don't remember the Ryu Soldier one that
If I
well, to be
remember
honest with you.
correctly, hold on, because this is it. Because I know Zeo the World appears in one of these team ups, and that was quite a funny
Yeah, that was
moment.
Lupin. That was Lupin versus Pat versus Q Ranger.
Right, but then in Ryu Soldier, I do remember specifically seeing them switch their like auxiliary armor. So like you had Ryu Soldiers with with a Lupin Ranger power up, and I
Hmm.
think it was Lupin Green. No, it was Patron Nego specifically that had a Ryu Soldier power up, if I'm not mistaken.
Hmm.
So yeah, that was literally all I kind of remember. And
Oh,
then,
now I remember it. Just remember the battle being pretty funny to watch
like the
because
final battle, I remember being pretty standoffish and pretty cool, and at Iwafuneyama, of course.
hmm.
Right, so the one special I will talk about is the another Nego two-parter. I mean, it was probably one of the last I watched, to be fair.
Hmm.
It was kind of, I mean, again, it was kind of too little, too late for us to invest in the Patrangers origin stories, and like, yeah, we'd already had bits in the series already. I mean, it was kind
Hmm.
of cool, and like, I mean, this is it. Like, I'm touching on this. I do. I mean, if I'm not mistaken, there was also a kind of Lupin Yellow Patron Sango girly special as well.
Yeah,
That
and
was kind of funky in its own way, but they were clearly taking that from the sort of Deca Ranger and Go On G3
hmm.
Princess vibe. So I guess they're carrying on that tradition for the foreseeable. Do you have any knowledge or thoughts on these?
I only like the only one I actually remember is the another Ichigo or another Nigo,
Another
whatever.
Nigo, yeah.
I thought that was actually probably the best special we've seen so far, and it actually explained why, like he was like he's a noob and stuff, and why he like got killed. It explained a lot of things, and I did enjoy that type of story. And I like supplemental stuff like that. You know what I mean?
No, I
So
totally get you. So let's move on. I mean, I know you're kind of a bit worried that you're not on your expert level on this, but let's talk about the music pretty quickly. So the
mhm.
OP was actually decently orchestrated, but I felt they were a bit
it
too
was
ambitious with their dual vocals. Other than that, it was really sad not to have an end theme or dance.
yeah, it
So the
was
rest didn't really do it for me.
it was a duopoly
It was
something
a budget
I
reason, of course.
no.
No?
They intended to do it. They had two separate songs they matched together. Did a word for it? I don't know. I forgot my
Like an amalgamation, I think you mean, but
No,
still.
there's another musical term for it. I forgot.
Right.
So, but yeah, like since I'm a music guy, I thought it was a very interesting way to put together two theme songs to make one ultimate theme song. And like separately, both of the themes kind of get like like going to vibe with the female version sound like Misaka Horie, and she's actually a famous voice actor in Japan, and this was her like first like
Okay.
big series. And then the new guy, Hitomi Yoshida, his voice is actually more metal. Like he doesn't actually sing that low usually, and he actually did a pretty good job. Getting a lot of East Sasaki vibe with this series. He was like Yami no Nakare Futakiri Mamawate. Like just having that low voice, fitted, and I would
I
like to see
guess I
him more
can
again.
appreciate the lower. I do appreciate the two tones of the male and female vocalists,
Hmm.
though. But again, to me, it just kind of felt a little bit kind of. It was just too busy for a song. And like I've listened, like you listen to the sort of the CD singles that they release, where they do separate the layers into two different tracks,
Hmm.
and it does sound a lot better, admittedly.
Yeah,
Um,
but that makes me think if they really did plan to have like like each week have a separate episode and they play the opening theme and then like the final five episodes they
No,
combine.
because thing is that I mean the thing is like when you play the separate layers, as good as they sound, there are too many gaps in it, so probably not.
Hmm.
But I will. So moving on, talking about the fighting choreography. Now, for me, it was all about Noel, because he was all parkour. I mean, like I guess you had the Lupinrangers kind of flying around with their
Like
kind of
acrobats and stuff.
with their little sort of sling hook thing. And then with the Patrangers, it was kind of like I could kind of see the police style kind of rolling around thingy majig.
Hmm.
So I could kind of give that some props, but for me, it was all about Noel, straight up.
Yeah, like Noah was probably the best ranger we had so far. You know what I mean? So.
For a while, at least. But I mean, I don't think there's much to cover in this next section because we've already talked about it, but the final arcs and the climax, for me, it was a bit of a mess, back and forth in sort of alternative
Hmm.
reality. There was like, yeah, I just remember seeing like they were stuck in like a field or something.
Yeah, and like they
And
had to get
yeah, they
rescued by
resolved
the
it in
people.
the end and it was happily ever after.
Well, technically, it was the people who rescued them was the one they were intending to rescue from the gang
Yeah,
war.
yeah, I remember
I
that.
actually
Again, there was
enjoyed
so
that.
much. It was so
I
much
would
back
have
and
loved
forth
to
thing.
see
I
like
remember that.
okay, I would have loved to see that happen in the last five episodes. Have them get trapped, and then they get out. They realize what happened, so they take up the mantle of Lupin, and then they end up seeing the Pat Rangers working together. Because they understand since they're new people, they're like, "Oh shit, y'all were missing." Oh, and then they explain what happened, and then maybe the Pat Rangers work and go, "Okay, we'll help you. We'll capture him." You know what I mean? And then I just there's so many
So many
there are a lot of
alternatives, I guess.
yeah
But
that would have
again,
looked a lot
it
better.
was just such a mess. That's just, again, we kind of feel that. But again, there's kind of a justice to it, if I'm honest. So
Hmm.
again, that's kind of like why I did kind of like that Carmen Rider Diana cafe setting. It's kind of like why I did completely pay full props to Commander Hilltop. It's kind of like where Dogranio is this retired commander. There's just like all these little bits for me that just adds up. But again, it is technically a random mess. But still, out of all the mess, were there any episodes that stood out for you in LVP?
Not really, to be honest.
See, for me, it would be the arrival of Noel, like a couple of episodes where they were talking in French and it was badly translated into Japanese kana, as well as like the final power up where they kind of went into this tomb and you kind of saw the real origin of Lupin and stuff. So that's probably my standouts personally. So let's talk about some of the small aspects before ending. I will say, like, when it comes to the locations, I liked some of the origin story backdrops. So, like, you'd have, like, Lupin Yellow with her friend drawing manga. You'd have, like, Lupin Red with his, like, playing basketball and stuff. And Lupin Blue with his girly friend. Yeah, so there was kind of all that. But the present day settings was pretty standard for them. And even overall, like, it was almost cliche with the cafe and even the command center for the Patrangers and their police academy, kind of same thing. With the villain base, it was still cliche, but kind of cool, I guess. Any thoughts?
It was like an Italian mobster.
Yeah, I got that vibe because he was sat at the end of a table, so that kind of was a cool aesthetic.
Yeah, I think had they done a little bit more digging, I would have liked to see something done with it, and maybe see even the Lupin versus Pat invade the place and destroy, and that's how they capture, because Noel has the power to go to that area, like that world, wherever that is.
I think I remember that. So, final question: would you recommend LVP?
No.
No, neither would I. As much as I like it, it's so mishmash, random, so much going on. Like, like for not even necessarily Sentai completionists, but someone who's got at least some familiarity with Sentai. Yeah, sure. Would I recommend it to someone new to Sentai? Definitely not.
No.
I mean, again, like for the I would like the type of person that should watch LVP is those that do like originality. So even though on one hand it's a mess, it has so many original. Like even though, like I mentioned, I always mention the word cliche. Like even despite all the cliches, there was some originality that I can give it props for.
I do hope to see. I would like to see this group again, Lupin versus Patrangers, come back for like a 5 or 10 anniversary or even just a special,
who knows? But okay, so let's round that up. So thank you everybody for watching us review LVP haphazardly. So you can catch us, the Toku Bros, on Facebook, Instagram, Reddit and YouTube, as well as our Twitter at Toku Bros 71.
In a Discord. You could find me on...
That's afterwards, but carry on.
But you could find me on Instagram, Discord, and YouTube. I am going to be posting some new tokusatsu music I did on karaoke, so I'll be on the lookout for that in the coming weeks. And then to you, RyuKiva.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Well, no, obviously there's us, the admins of Tokusatsu Media Center, so you can find us on Facebook as well as our Discord Media Center, where it's all set up, it's all fully going on. We've had like me again, it's a slowly growing community of different variations, so it's not strictly Tokusatsu, but the more we can get Tokusatsu interest, the better. But finally, myself, RyuKiva of RyuKiva Toku. You can find me on all social media, Facebook, Instagram, Reddit. You can find me at LinkedIn and Patreon for business inquiries as I go into fan subbing in a few months' time. My Discord, my own YouTube channel where Toku Unboxing is in its final 2 weeks, finally. So there's myself at Twitter as well, and you can catch all my actual updates and blogging at ryukivatoku.weebly.com. So thank you all for watching. We hope to see you again next time, and as always, fist through the cam.